folks. Welcome back to another episode of the Shots Fired podcast. I am your host, Kyle Schoberg, and we have over here Billy and
the infamous
Billy. That's right. We would like to say thank you to everybody that has subscribed to our channel, gone on a podcast app, whichever app you prefer, and listen to our program. We really appreciate it. We've had a lot of good feedback. And, we would like to ask people to, if you're liking our content, like it on YouTube, give us a comment on a podcast app on Apple iTunes. It really helps boost the, gets our podcast out there. And yeah, all of that shit. Like it, subscribe to it, listen to it, and send it off to, forward it to a friend if you find benefit in it. So we appreciate everyone's support.
And if you have specific questions for Kyle or for me, we both have Instagrams now.
That's right. You made I
finally made my Instagram. I'm in the social media world now.
Yeah, we got Billy to make his Instagram. So we'll put all that in the description, but you can add him or find him on Instagram now at Billy Shots Fired Podcast. And then obviously myself, Kyle _Schoberg. And again, if you guys want to hop onto my website, kyleschoberg.com, get information on how to host a class. Some of the classes that I teach are surviving deadly encounters and debriefing some officer involved shootings. And of course, officer wellness. So if you guys are interested in that, hop on my website, kyleschoberg.com, and get some details there.
Yeah, so do one locally, hopefully here soon, because I'd like to go to it. And that way I can heckle you from the back. But
yeah, I have a couple classes coming up actually. So I've had some people ask me actually when my next classes are. So I've got one scheduled in Arizona next month in October. That's at the Arizona Tactical Officers Association. So that'll be really cool. And then I've got another one up by Portland. I want to say that's the first week in November. And then the following day, I actually have another one also in Oregon that I'm going to be traveling to. So I've got 3 classes coming up, Oregon and Arizona. Super excited to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've never been to his class yet, and I will go to him. But
I feel like you would be in the background, like probably talking shit, like heckling me.
No, I mean I would be talking shit, but like I wouldn't want to disrupt the class, so I'd be like probably texting you.
Go sit outside.
Yeah, I'd be texting you. Like
probably
that's bullshit.
So, anyways, hey, we're going to be doing things a little different tonight. We don't have a guest on with us. We wanted to do a little bit of Q&A session. We've had a lot of people reach out to us and ask us some really good questions on social media. We want to address those questions tonight, which is what we're going to do. And then Billy and I are going to share some Q&A with each other because we kind of, in our careers, we went down 2 different paths in law enforcement.
Kind of very different paths, actually.
Well, yeah, a lot different. So we'll share our stories, and give you guys some advice on some cool stuff. So let's go over some of these questions that we've been asked on social media. Let me pull them up here. These are some pretty good questions. All right. You ready?
Oh, hold on. Let me stretch.
All right. I thought this was a good question, actually. What would you say, or would you say a prior Special Operation Forces experience is a must in units like SWAT, FBI, BORTAC, which honestly, I don't even know what that is.
I don't know what BORTAC is.
Etc.
I'll pull up my phone here soon.
BORTAC. Yeah, that might be like an East Coast thing or something. But anyways, so I guess basically the question is, do you need to have Special Forces experience to be on a SWAT team or work for the FBI? My answer to that is no. Do I think that maybe it would give you a leg up? Sure, because you've got the tactics down, right? But you can always learn tactics. Like guys in Special Forces start at the bottom, just like we do. So no, I don't think you need to have that experience. I think that it would help, surely, but people also need to remember that the military trains differently than we do. Police. Our tactics are not the same. They operate a little differently than we do. I'm sure there's some similarities. I wasn't in the military, so I don't.
And neither was I. So yeah.
Right. But we have friends that were, and we've had them on this show. But Yeah, I don't think you need it. Like I said, I think it'll give you a leg up, but you're always going to learn that stuff. So it's a good question.
I think that I would say that you could take the best SWAT guy on the planet, and you could take the best special operations guy, whatever it may be, and you could put them, and you could say, hey, SWAT guy, go do the special operations job, whatever it may be, and he's not going to be able to do it.
No, not even close.
And I think vice versa is also true. They're different. They have similarities where they definitely cross over, but it's completely different. And I would say the majority, I don't know, speak for your own experience with SWAT. I don't have SWAT experience personally. I work very closely with a lot of SWAT guys.
Yeah.
So I do know who they are and everything. And I think I know a few who have special ops backgrounds, but the majority don't.
Yeah, I think it's just two completely different entities. I think training's a lot different.
Yeah.
But it's a good question. I think a lot of people think you need to have that.
Oh, I think it, no matter what, I think any background in anything relevant to law enforcement helps. So as far as if you say, hey, from day one, I want to be the SWAT god or the SWAT guy,
which most people do, Canine and SWAT.
Yeah. And if those are what you want to do and you have a background in it, in tactical, you have a tactical background or you have a Canine background, of course that helps.
Sure, for sure.
But I don't think not having it is an eliminator or hurts.
Not at all. No, not at all. All right, moving on. Here's a good one. How do you stay motivated in a state with bullshit legislation? And this is coming from someone in Oregon. And I just want to throw out there that California is probably right there with Oregon and a lot of other states where, we are very heavily regulated in law enforcement. The laws here are pretty wacky. To be honest, like people aren't, not only are they not going to jail for things, but when they are going to jail, they're immediately getting let out. There's this zero bail thing. Hell, I mean, they're trying to pass a bill where, if you're poor, then the level of your bail depends on how much money you make. I mean, dude, people that we're arresting, 99% of them are not like wealthy people. So of course their bail is going to be set at a low amount. Like that's crazy to me. So there's a lot of changes going on in California right now. So we're right there with you. My answer to that would just be, I've talked about this before, and it's remembering the why I got into this job. And I have a pretty clear understanding now that I know I can't save the world, but, I think I mentioned it in our last episode with Scott was, I got into this job because somebody has to do it. And I used the phrase, just like the guy that comes and collects your trash on Friday. Mm-hmm. Somebody has to do that. Not everybody wants to be the trash guy. But I respect the guy that does that. Just like police work, I do it because I feel like I have the ability to at least help other officers with my experience. And then, there's people out there that get victimized. And if we're not doing it, then who are they going to call? Mm-hmm. Like somebody has to do it. There are other things I don't agree with. Absolutely. Like, of course. But I kind of try to shove that stuff aside and really focus on like why I became a cop. And that's the best answer that I can give. I don't pay attention to this other shit.
And I agree 100%. And with all yours, and I would go further into it and say, much like our friends in the military and stuff like that, I would say some of my motivation is, my partners and my friends. That's a huge motivation for me. Other than that is, especially when you're a specialized position like I am right now, I have a freaking fucking awesome job.
Yeah.
And I go to work and I have a great time because I work with great people that I know have my back. And I work for a department that I know has my back too, within guidelines and laws and everything. But I go to work and I get to drive really fast and chase really bad people. And it's a lot of fun. If you're a little bit of an adrenaline junkie like me, And I know that you've definitely done that, and you're still doing it to a certain extent. I think that I'm obviously doing it a little bit more now.
Yeah,
but,
being a supervisor, I'm kind of in the background now.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, it's the most. I've done some jobs that aren't fun. This is a lot of the job's super fun.
Yeah, I mean, what it boils down to is, I mean, not too many people can say they've done what we've done in law enforcement.
Right.
And this is a job where there is no other job where you would get to do stuff that we get to do. So, yeah, there's a lot of politics and bullshit. You know, what I tell guys at work is, you know, stay within policy and the law, you're fine.
Mm-hmm.
Period. Like, if you're going out and doing rogue shit and things you shouldn't be doing and you're getting in trouble, then, you know, that's on you. But as long as you stay within policy and the law, you know, I think you're good.
And that kind of says law enforcement's super easy.
It really is. Yeah. It's not hard to stay out of trouble.
It literally, you know, there's so many jobs that have gray areas, and while law enforcement is super lives in that gray area, I will say that. But what I can't do is pretty much written down 10 times in 10 different ways. What I can do is written down in another 10 to 20 ways. And as long as you know your policy and know the state law, know case laws, and know things like that, it's really easy to not get in trouble. It's harder to get in trouble than to not get in trouble.
Yeah. I think where guys get in trouble is they get so complacent with the job, and there's so much freedom involved in our job. You know, you don't have a boss hounding over you 24/7. Like, you're on your own doing, you know, you're doing things that you have a lot of authority. So
you have the ultimate authority to take someone's life.
Exactly. So, and
not even take someone's actual life. You get to put them in prison for the rest of their life, which is in a way taking their life.
Yeah. And I've thought about that, you know, like, yeah, you could potentially be ruining somebody's life. You should take that pretty serious. So, when making your decisions, but, what I will say is, you find that a lot of cops, I think, get used to that, and then they feel like they're untouchable, and then that's when you see guys doing shit they shouldn't be doing. You know, I've worked with guys where I had a guy on my shift where they did an undercover operation on him because he was stealing pills and shit and selling them. So, which it happens all the time.
What cop out there thinks that's okay?
Yeah, no, I hope none.
And that's why I say that's not a law enforcement issue. That's a personal issue. That person has a personal issue, and they went the wrong path. Trust me, opportunity is there. Yep. You've been in opportunities. I've literally been in a room with over $1 million, and I've had to count that money and book it. And trust me, that I can tell you, I'm sure the opportunity is there for many people where you'd be like, oh, they don't know how much money's here until I'm done counting it.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, you got to hold yourself accountable.
What's $100 in $1 million? It's nothing.
Nothing. What's $1,000 in $1 million?
Exactly.
Nothing. A drop in the bucket.
It's all morals and values and where you draw the line. And if we start committing crimes, and we're criminals, we're not cops. Yeah. So I don't know. You keep your head high and just remember why you got into this job. Stay out of trouble. This guy wrote, he's thinking about leaving a smaller agency and wants to go to a bigger one. Any advice? I can speak a little bit to that in the sense of I started at a really small agency, 25, maybe 30 guys. And that's like including the chief. And then I, lateral to where I'm at now, which still isn't that big of a department. You got 100 now? Probably 100, a little over 100. So, which to me is a small department, because I think we're at, I think I mentioned it, maybe like 1,500 sworn. Yeah, which still, I mean, that's a large agency, but I mean, there's a lot bigger than that too. Like LA County, LAPD, or in the New York. Yeah, I mean, New York, Phoenix got a city, I think, like 30 to 40,000. Yeah, I think they have like 10,000 plus cops. I mean, it's a huge department. I think it's more. Well, whatever. Yeah, so I mean, I guess in the sense of like, I went to a department from 30 guys to 100 plus. So is that big? No, but it's bigger than where I started. And what I can say to that is there's obviously going to be more opportunity to do different things within a larger department as far as like specialty assignments go. Experience wise, I think you're definitely going to get more experience.
So there's always that pro, but the con to me is I think the larger agency you go to, the more politics there are. And there could be potentially more drama in bigger departments because you're dealing with just more people.
Well, I mean, yes and no. I mean, not to cut you off or anything, but I think that you brought up the big thing to me is, so your department, which we call small, medium.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And we call mine medium, large, or whatever.
Yep.
How many narcotics officers do you have?
Oh my gosh. No. Well, we have a team
of true like they work narcotics and major narcotics only.
Well, before COVID hit and we had to shrink it down. Yeah. We had team of 5 guys.
And that's all they did was
that's all they did.
Oh,
that's all they did.
Okay.
So,
and I see,
but where I came from, we had one.
Okay.
And it was they were assigned on a regional team. And so if you were lucky enough to be that one guy, so there's pros and cons.
I mean, and then we have a full gang team.
Yeah.
With multiple people. Canine handlers, we have
12.
12, yeah. I think we have 11. We're supposed to have 12. You guys have 4 or 5.
5, yeah.
Yeah. So, those are the big differences, is the opportunities. Mm-hmm. And everybody on your department.
Yeah. For the most part, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like if you were walking through the mall and you saw somebody, you'd be like, that guy works for my department.
Yep. Yeah.
I can walk through a mall or whatever and be like, that guy looks familiar. I don't know where I know him from.
He's all, Billy, I work literally on your team. You're like, oh shit. Hey,
I was drunk when that.
Yeah.
You look different outside of work.
Now there's pros and cons to it. I mean, coming from a real small agency though, I will say like the camaraderie ship was way, way bigger than it is going to a bigger department, at least from my experience. I do miss that. I mean, I miss the small town atmosphere, the community. I miss the guys I worked with. I still keep in contact with some of them, but I think at a bigger agency that kind of dwindles a little bit.
And I agree. And how you make that smaller is you join smaller teams. And that's
exactly,
I've been on 3 different smaller teams now, and it's that team atmosphere. Yeah. It truly is. I got your back no matter what kind of thing. Well, not no matter what, but I got your back.
Yep.
And then that brought up a question to me, and we don't have to go too deep into it, but the difference between PD and Sheriff's Department,
mm-hmm.
because you've worked for multiple PDs and I've only done the sheriff's route. And I think that the big thing I think of is sheriff works for the people. He's elected.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Big difference. Huge difference.
And when you talk about a PD, you've got a chief or police department. You have a chief that works for city council, city manager, mayor. All these people are his boss basically.
Yeah.
And I think it changes a department where they have to do things that aren't necessarily best for the people at times.
Yeah, and that actually, so that was another question.
Was it?
Yeah, thinking about going from a PD to a sheriff's department.
Okay, well, I jumped the gun. Sorry.
No, it's all good. I mean, so that answers that question. I think vastly different because you are working for an elected official by the people versus a PD where you're working for a chief who is appointed by city council. The city council is obviously elected in or voted in by the people, mm-hmm. the communities. So a little bit more politics, probably, actually for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. But, there's also pros and cons to that too. I mean, at a sheriff's department, where you work, your sheriff's department is more of like an urban type environment,
right,
sheriff's department.
It's not rural at all,
which is kind of rare.
We do have rural. I will say that,
yes,
but no,
vast majority of where your sheriff's department is not rural. It's urban.
Yeah,
but that's rare. I think most sheriff's departments, it's a rural type atmosphere, and you got to think you're probably out there by yourself. Your backup is probably 45 on the low end. I'll say 30 minutes to an hour plus away. So
yeah,
you got to think about that too. I mean, in a city environment, you've got backup within minutes, if that. And when I'm talking backup, like you can get 20 plus cops in a matter of less than 3 to 5 minutes.
Right.
In a city environment. Whereas you go out into these sheriff's departments where you may be out there by yourself for a while. So to me, that's never really been my thing. I'm not interested in that. You know, I like knowing the fact that I have backup pretty close by. Always, really. Yeah. I'm not even going to say like, I should never be at anything by myself where we work. You know, so I don't know. I mean, if that's your thing, cool. Think about that. You know, you may be out on your own. You may not have backup. And I guess I hope you have the gift of gab. Yeah, you may have to talk to people.
Well, and I would also say that the other part of that is a lot of sheriff's departments, not all of them. You have the correctional background.
Yes, which you guys have to do. Some don't.
Some don't. Some do. So you're starting in corrections, and for some people, it's not why I got into it.
It's not the sexiness of what we want to do, but yeah, like sometimes you are going to go to the jail. Period.
And it's not a choice.
Not a choice.
It's not like, oh, I want to do this. I'm over this. Well, when your number's up, you can come out. And sometimes I know people who have done not mandatory, but they've.
Dude, I've heard of people at your department doing like 8, 9, 10 years.
8 years. Yeah, I've heard the most I think is 9. And then and a few years ago when hiring was hot, it was, I would think, a year.
Yeah, like 1 or 2 years. Yeah.
So
I think most sheriff's departments are probably averaging about 2 years.
Yeah, which is also another thing is for me, I grew up in a smaller town and I didn't have a background where I dealt with a lot of criminals like aspect. I didn't know what a gang member, I knew what a gang member was from movies and TV and whatnot. And you go to the jail and you talk about the gift of gab and it teaches you that.
Yeah.
And it teaches you, hey, you know, this is pick your battles too. And for some people are, you know, they draw that line real quick and they say black and white when someone calls your mom a bitch or something that gets them mad and you're like, come on, get over it, dude. They don't know your mom.
The society we're in nowadays, you got to learn to just block that bounce, shit out. Yeah. Who cares? So that pretty much answers that. I mean, you know, there's definitely pros and cons to the sheriff's department, but for me, it never was my thing. But like I said, where he works, it's more urban, not rural. So different.
Yeah.
Things you wish you did or knew before getting on at your first agency. That's tricky. Honestly, for me, I think I wish I would have just finished college.
Well, you were 12, so it's different.
Yeah, I know, pretty fucking much. Dude, I was young. I was in college. I was in a process of getting my degree, but then I was like, wow, there's a position opening up. Like, I'll throw my name in the hat.
Yeah.
If I get hired, cool. If I don't, I'll at least have a leg up. So when I finish college, I thought I would do well in the process. Well, hell, I ended up getting hired and I had to drop out of college. And you know what I told myself? Like, I think before I went to the academy, I'll just finish as soon as I get out of the academy, I'll finish school.
Yeah.
15 years later, I still haven't finished. I haven't even taken a single class since. So to answer your question, I wish I would have finished up college, got that over with. It would have given me more life experience at the time because I was only 20 when I started. And I probably would have lived life a little bit. You know, I felt like I started at such a young age that I didn't get to do a lot of things that, you know, a lot of dumb, silly shit my friends got to do because I was always at risk of like losing my job.
Right.
And my chief at the time told me, he's like, you fuck up one time, you're out. You're done. I'm giving you one shot and that's it.
Because they took a chance with you, right?
Oh,
you brought it up on another one that they're like, yeah, we don't normally do this, but.
Yeah. What agency hires a guy at that age? Like,
yeah. Well, and what age was that again? 20?
I had like just turned 20. So fuck, to be honest, I may have been like 19 and a half when I tested. And when I got hired, I ended up being 20 because I was a solo. I went through the whole academy, you know, which is 6 months. And then I did FTO, which is another like 4 or 5 months. And then I was still 20 years old when I was as solo patrol officer.
Okay.
I wasn't even 21 yet. I couldn't even carry my gun off duty outside of work because you have to be 21.
Yeah, exactly.
So fuck. Yeah. I mean, it worked out for me in the end, but
I think that you're the exception, not the rule when it comes to that.
I would probably agree with you on that. And I definitely made a lot of mistakes. I'm glad I started out a small agency, but Yeah, I wish I would have finished school, got life experience, and then jumped into it. To be honest with you, we talked about this during the episode we did with Caden. I wish I would have joined the military, to be honest. Yeah. I really do. I don't regret, like I said, I don't regret a lot of things, but I do regret not doing that. Doing this job and kind of knowing that like my niche is like action and adrenaline, and I love that stuff, you know, and I really wish I would have done that. A lot of my buddies did, but I didn't. So it is what it is. But that would be my advice. I mean, if you're, you know, finish up school, get that done. It's a long career.
Yeah.
I don't know. What about you?
So I started I got hired when I was 27 and I paid my way through the academy. So quite different, I would say. I'm a little bit late. That's a little late normally.
And it's still young. Like 27 is still really young. Yeah. But to start in law enforcement, I guess when the grand scheme of things, like that's a little on the later end.
Well, I mean, I think that especially in California here, we always look at the 30-year mark is kind of our big thing is 30 years in law enforcement. And, you know, that's when the retirement really starts to pay out and everything. And you think about it for you, that's around 50 years old. For me, that's 57. 57 seems a little bit. I don't want beat cops that are 57 years old.
I couldn't imagine.
Which is a whole nother story, but that's the new retirement, I think, for California.
Yeah.
But I think life experience would be my number one thing. You brought it up. Whether it be college, I think college is a good life experience.
Yeah.
I've definitely ran into cops who are like, oh, I've done college and that's my experience. And for me, it's depending on where you want to go.
Yeah.
You know, having the ability to deal with the criminal aspect and everything. There's not a whole lot of criminal aspect in college, in my opinion, compared to other trades or anything like that. Learn something, have some skills, have a backup plan, have the ability to talk to people, whatever it may be. Maybe it's a waitress or waiter or a server, I'm sorry, at a restaurant. And, you know, that gives you that community, talking to people.
Yeah.
Even when you don't want to talk to them, I'm sure.
Communication is huge in our job. It's almost like it's like 90% of it.
And then I just got my college degree, and I say, get your college degree. And I don't think, I will put this out there right now. I don't think a college degree makes you a better cop.
Nope.
At all.
No.
And I don't think it is the best life experience. I think there's way better life experience. But in the area that we work, most give a lot of respect to college degrees. And if you plan on promoting and plan on doing the thing, you need to have a college degree. And that's just the way that it is. And I disagree with it, but it is the way that it is.
Yeah. And we talked about this in episode 1 and I agree with you. I do not think a college degree makes or breaks you. I've said it before. Unfortunately, you know, or fortunately, I guess, a lot of departments require it to promote, you know, so,
or to get, I think a lot requires 60 units minimum
to even get hired. Yeah. Yep. Here in California, at least. So is it important? Sure. Is there value to it? Yeah, for sure. You know, there's a lot of value in school. Does it make you a great cop? No, it doesn't.
No.
Experience does. So, I hope that answers.
I'll get off my soapbox on schools and stuff here soon.
That's okay. So let me look here. What makes a good, well-rounded police officer in your opinion? That's a loaded question. There's a lot of things. Shoot.
I think we just talked about some of them.
Yeah,
but,
kind of. I'd probably say, here's what I think what makes a good cop. And this comes with, like I said, like 15 years of experience of figuring it out. But I think someone that can communicate. I just had this conversation the other night with a guy on training. I had to pull him aside because he's young. He's on FTO and he fresh out of the academy. So when you're in the academy, you're kind of taught to be robotic, right?
Oh, almost 100%.
Yeah. So, you know, I was telling him, I'm like, hey man, I get it.
Teach you to talk like this or when you're writing.
Yep. And I use that as an example, right? Like gun side away, have your hand up, you know, dude, I had to tell him, I'm like, man, I know they tell you that in the academy out here in the streets. doesn't work that way. Like, you talk to some of these people and they don't want to talk to a cop like that anymore. That shit's gone.
No,
that behavior is long gone. Where we're at today, you know, I try to emphasize, be a freaking human being. Sometimes you got to get down on their level. And, I think people respect you a lot more, and you'll get a lot further with talking to suspects, victims, whoever, just by getting down on their level. Don't be so robotic, and just be a human being. And I'm going to say this, I actually heard this from I think he's the deputy chief of Phoenix PD. Okay. That's a very large department. Right. They are very busy, active, very reputable department.
And near the border too. So
they're very respectable department. So, I just listened to he was on a podcast. I can't remember the guy's name, but, you know, he said that Phoenix PD in 2018 completely went away because they send their guys to their own academy, similar to LAPD, because it's such a big department. They said they completely went away with that style of academy, meaning they're not yelling at the recruits. They're not making them act like robots. They're not making them do all the stuff that you would probably do in like a military type basic training. And the reason for that is, he said, is because when we're getting out of the academy and you just spent 6 months getting yelled at, you're expected to behave the way that you're expected to behave in an academy, which we all know what that's like. People are transitioning that over to the streets, and they start to treat people that they're dealing with like that. And when he said that, I never even really thought about that. But then I'm like, man, he's 100% right. I mean, sometimes, most of the time, I think when you're new, we don't treat people very fairly, even if they're a shitbag or, you know, they're in trouble and they've done something wrong. I think by default, by being treated like that for so long in an academy, we transition that over, and then we start treating other people like that. And so he said that they've completely done away with that style of learning. Their uses of forces have gone down dramatically. Their complaints have gone down drastically. There's been a big uptick, a positive side to not running their academy that way, or like a pre-military style academy. And he said it's really gotten their newer officers to kind of just be humans.
I mean, I think that, you know, your numbers that you talked about, and we didn't throw out numbers, but you're saying did better, right? And,
yes, they say basically in all categories, it's been a positive thing.
I can't argue that. I do think that there is a line in the academies and everything that I agree with. It's got to be tough. It's got to be not easy. If it was easy, everyone would do it.
Sure,
it's simple as that. And the fact that someone, if you're in the academy and someone's yelling at you and that bugs you to the point where you're like, I don't want to do this anymore, or you hurt my feelings or something like that, then
probably not the
I'm
job
going to say this right now, and I'm going to say it. Get the out right now.
Yeah.
Because I have been called the worst on the planet, and I'm sure you have too.
Yes.
And and that's when you talk about, we talked about policies and rules and everything like that, and we're all human, right? Is there people that have said shit to me that I wanted to knock the fuck out?
Yeah. Oh yeah. They talk about killing your family, or
I mean, there's people all the time that I want to do that too.
Yeah.
But I think that the academy, where they were like telling me I sucked at something or whatever it may be, yelling at me at things, pushed me to be like, okay, yeah, well, chirp all you want, or words, you know, let's not be juvenile here, but sticks and stones may break my bones, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
well,
no,
words will
I
never
agree.
hurt me. And it's actually the truth, you know? So qualifiable facts that you're talking about, numbers, they don't lie. So I'm not going to argue it, but I do think that there needs to be, it needs to be tough. It can't be, we can't patty cake our academies, and we can't patty cake our FTO. And I think that when you're coming up, when you fuck up, everyone's going to fuck up. you get called out on it, you get told you're an idiot, and it should be you're an idiot or you're an effing idiot, whatever it may be. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, grow some skin. And if you don't have skin in this job, get out.
Yeah, it's not meant for you. I agree. Like, maybe there's a happy medium. Obviously I'm a huge proponent of stress-induced training. We don't do enough of that in this job. We do not put our officers through enough stress-induced training. That I will say for sure.
But
so
but just to go on that point, it's hard to replicate stress. True stress-induced training is hard to replicate, I think.
So that, yeah, to the extent of like actually feeling it in real life when you're in a really stressful situation. But so I do agree with you that, yeah, there does need to be a level of that in the academy, and also on FTO, like there should be a level of stress there. Overboard and treating a trainee like shit. Nah, I don't agree with that. I've seen it, and I know you have too. We've all seen it. Hell, all of us have probably had an FTO where, and for those of you who don't know, an FTO is a field training officer. I'm sure we have all had an FTO where you're not even learning at that point. When you're so worried about trying to impress your training officer or just not pissing him off, you're not learning.
No, you're not.
You're not. So, if you are an FTO out there, don't treat a trainee like that. You're there to make the guy or girl successful. You're not there to intentionally want them to fail. If you are, then you're not doing your job right. So induce stress on them to a level where they can accept it. And again, this kind of comes back to canine training. A lot of stuff parallels canine training and dogs' behaviors, but same it goes in humans. Are
you calling me a dog?
You want me to?
What's up, dog?
Is that you take a dog, you introduce it to some stress. If you see the dog shutting down, you don't add more stress to the dog, so he completely shuts down. You back it off a little bit and make it successful for the dog. Now, are all dogs successful and can? No, they can't. And they wash out, right? But I feel like the same thing goes for trainees. Is you should be able to put some stress on them, and if they're not getting it, or maybe it's a little too much, maybe back off, right? But if that pattern of behavior continues, maybe they're not cut out for the job. But I think as a good FTO, you need to recognize like what's too much for your trainee and when to back off and teach them, and not, there's training and there's testing. When are you testing and when are you training? Those are two different things there.
And that segues to law enforcement work in general too, because whether you're a detective or a street cop or jail cop or whatever it may be, you're talking to people and you're interviewing people, and you need to be able to talk to people. And we already mentioned that, but you need to be able to read those people. If I'm pushing hard on, hey, what'd you do? What was this? What was this? And they're like, I don't know. Most of the time they were in a traumatic situation themselves, and they're going to miss some things. They're not going to think of some things. If you make it a relaxing, understanding, hey, more chill environment, that helps you to get more information. And we're in the information world. That's all we are in.
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to be cool with people. Fake it to make it. It doesn't mean you have to be their best friend, but man,
be careful with that phrase though. Cause I've had cops who like, I know where you're going with it, but I've had cops who are like talking to somebody and they're like, oh, well, I've done this in my life. And they're like, oh, I did this too. And they're like, oh, okay. What'd you do? And they're like, especially like, let's talk construction, since I did that for 10 years before, but they'd be like, oh yeah, I did construction too. They're like, okay, what'd you do? And they'd be like, construction.
You just look like an idiot.
Yeah. And then they're like, you're lying to me. Don't lie.
Yeah.
Don't lie. Don't be a liar.
So when I say fake it to make it, I mean, I guess I should have said, get down on their level sometimes. Just talk to them like a goddamn human being, and just fucking chat with people sometimes, I mean, you'd be amazed. So don't be so robotic.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what question we were answering with that, but
I don't even know either.
Yeah, whatever. All right. So Billy and I want to do a couple Q&A with ourselves, because Billy went down a different career path than I did. And he's got a lot of advice and stuff to offer for things that he has done in the detective world. I never did that. And then, vice versa. He's had some questions for me, and then I get a lot of questions on social media about canine related stuff, because I was a dog handler for a long time. I am very fortunate that I had a lot of good canine experience, a lot of apprehensions. I got to be involved in man, you name it. Calls where officers were killed. Obviously been involved in several shootings of my own as a dog handler. So I've had a lot of good experiences as a dog handler. So I get a lot of questions on social media about canine stuff, which I appreciate. I try to get back to everybody about it. It's a very, very hard job. It looks easy. I think from the outside looking in,
the dog does all the work, right?
Yeah. I think from the outside looking in, people assume like, the dog's a robot. Give him a command. He's going to do it. All is well. Well, that's just so far from the truth. It's not even funny. So, there is a story going around right now. Gosh darn it. I don't remember the county, but it was a sheriff's department in Florida, and a couple of canines ended up getting shot on this deployment. One was a patrol dog, and then the other one, it turned into a SWAT thing. And then the dog working with the SWAT team got shot. I'm not going to go over the whole circumstance behind all of it, but it's pretty popular thing right now. And there was some stuff going on, some comments being made online about why the cop shot the dog when the dog was biting the suspect starts shooting, and the officers start shooting back, shoot the suspect, and then ultimately the dog gets shot. And I've been in that same scenario, right? My last shooting, I was in the exact same scenario. Mm-hmm. Fortunately my dog lived. And in this scenario, where this recently happened, both dogs ended up living as well. But the one dog did get shot, and whether he got shot by the officers or the suspect, I don't know. To me, it doesn't matter. Yeah. To me, it doesn't fucking matter. But, there's a lot of people that were making comments about why cops would shoot a suspect when a dog is biting him. And then there were other comments made about, would you shoot a human officer while they were struggling with a suspect on the ground? Would you shoot the suspect and shoot the cop too? So it's, to me, that just seems like crazy logic that people think that way, but I get it. There's a misconception out there that a canine is considered the same as a police officer. I'm here to tell everybody they're not. They're not considered a police officer. They're not human. At the end of the day, it's a dog. Okay. I was a handler for a long time. I've been in a situation like this where I had to shoot a suspect while my own dog was biting somebody. And I'm here to tell you that was like one of the hardest decisions I've had to make, because you got to imagine, in my head, I'm thinking I'm killing my own dog. Right. But do you want to survive or do you not? That's what it boils down to. So in this situation, I'm sure, a lot of you probably know what I'm talking about. If a dog's biting a bad guy and the bad guy pulls a gun and starts shooting, what do you think the logical thing to do is?
I can tell you what I'm going to do.
You're going to shoot.
I'm going to shoot.
Because you have to.
And most of the time I'm going to be shooting with a pistol at a high stress. And at this point, I'm going to be retreating and doing stuff. And I'm going to be shooting in an area where he's at, aiming for his chest, and dogs are moving, suspects are moving.
And
anywhere. You know what I'm thinking? Hey, good job, pup, but I'm sorry. You or me, I'll sacrifice my own dog before I sacrifice me. I will sacrifice my own dogs.
Before yourself or a partner.
That are pets, that before my partners. And when it comes to canine, I'd have no problem shooting a canine. Yep. While I'm doing it. Obviously, will I have remorse and be sad about it? Yeah,
So that's a good answer. That is a good answer. And if you're a canine handler listening to this, or even not, like, if you're a dog handler, you should be talking about this stuff in briefings with your patrol team. I do it all the time, or I did it all the time. I would tell guys all the time. I would train with it. I would tell them, hey, if my dog is on a dog bite and a threat presents itself where you have to defend yourself or your partner, don't worry about the dog. Okay. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, it is a dog. Will I be sad? Fuck yeah. The dog will die a hero.
Yeah.
Period. And he'll be forever known as a hero for saving all of our lives. You have to get it through people's head that it's an animal. It's not an officer. It's not a human. It's doing its job. That's why we have them. And if it's even enough time, if a dog is biting a suspect and it even gives us enough time to retreat, get cover, return fire, that's what the dog is there. That's what his job is intended for. Now, will I say, would I ever send my dog on a suicide mission? No, I wouldn't do that. And I don't know in this scenario if that was the case, where maybe they shouldn't have used the second dog to go track and apprehend this guy when he has already shot another dog. I haven't read too much into it, so I don't know too much of the backstory of that. And there's probably a time and a place for that. But
have you ever sent your dog on a?
Yes, and I'll get into that in just a second, where I did have to make that decision. A little bit different circumstance, but on this
they're all going to be different circumstances.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. I just want people to know that, I know it sucks, and people get really upset when they talk about if shooting a dog, because they're dog animal lovers, and I am too. I have one, but it is what it is, right? Like, I don't want to die. I don't want one of my partners to die, and so be it. If the dog is on the bite and you have to return fire, that's what we're going to do, and that's what you guys should all mentally prepare yourselves for that. And that day may come.
We can go to psychology of shootings and everything like that. And you might know more than me, or I probably know a lot more about me and have a lot more experience with psychology of shooting and everything.
Yeah.
But you can look at the fact that I'm sure when you go to the range, you shot a paper target, and that paper target is a person's face on it.
Yeah. A silhouette of a person.
A silhouette of a person. And it's not just a silhouette. It's got a face and eyes, and maybe they have a gun. Sometimes they don't, whatever it is, but they're wearing the targets we shoot could be a picture of you and me doing this. And that's what we shoot at. And there's a psychology behind it, because and I could be wrong about my war or whatever, but World War II, it might've been World War I, they looked at it, and all the military was trained on targets, your circle, simple thing like
You're
that.
Right. Yeah.
And these these military soldiers they could shoot a target from 100 yards or whatever it may be, dead, nuts, whatever you want to call it. When it came down to shooting that battle, they didn't want to shoot the person, because that's psychology. We as people, we don't want to shoot people. So we can sit there and we can go and we can be like, in training, you do this. And not that the face target is the one that completely changes it now, because we all know that that's a target. And we all know that when you were in shootings and stuff, that was a person.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, if I put you in the same situation with a target, your shots are probably going to be fucking way better.
So that's you brought up a good topic there. And that part of my training course I teach is, I really don't care if you go to the range and you stand on a static line and you shoot a grouping that big. To me, I don't care. It doesn't impress me. At face value, it looks really cool. It looks like you got a hell of a shot. Awesome. What I train people is, when you go to the range, you should be shooting under some type of stress. And a very simple thing to do is take a shot clock timer and activate the shot clock timer, and it makes a beeping sound, right? When you activate it, by default, you automatically just induced a little bit of stress into you, because you know you're being timed. Your brain is going to automatically add a little bit of stress into the environment, because you know you're being timed. You heard the beep. You're under a little bit of pressure. Is it a lot? No, but by doing that and getting rounds downrange as fast as you possibly can, obviously as accurate as you can, is you are training, you're conditioning your brain to be able to operate under stress that much more, versus standing on a static line. The instructor tells you thread or gun or whatever command gets you to shoot.
They turn
and you
or whatever.
aim. Yeah, you aim. You've got your cool little red dot sight on your handgun, which I think are a fucking joke. And you shoot a grouping that big, and you're taking your sweet time. That's garbage training. I don't care about that. What I care about is how fast you can deliver rounds downrange effectively as possible under stress. Because in real life, that's what it boils down to. You're not going to get the opportunity to raise your gun up, find your front sights, look for the little red dot, and engage the target. Is there a time and a place for that? Yeah, there might be. I think it's less than probably 1%.
Right.
Most officer-involved shootings are like that. quick.
And they're about as far as we are away from each other.
Maybe.
Most
I've been in some where I was within 4 feet of somebody, and I've been in ones where I was 20 feet, from somebody. So the point is, I'm very big on training under stress. Doesn't have to be a whole lot of stress, but a little bit of stress over a long period of time goes a long way. You're conditioning your brain, to handle those adrenaline surges, because in real life, your adrenaline spikes like crazy. You have to be able to work through that. So,
and adrenaline spikes is something. Any officer out there who has done something, not necessarily a shooting or whatever, they know those adrenaline spikes and everything.
Yeah.
And when you get those, learn how to recognize them and learn how to work through them.
Yes.
And wherever it may be, as you as a supervisor now, I know that it's a different. Whereas, we'll say a pursuits give people adrenaline dumps all the time.
Yep.
And you can tell on the radio almost all the time. You can tell somewhat. Controlling it is another thing. And as a supervisor, when you recognize and say, I'm sitting there, I'm like, he's, and I get on the radio and you can't understand what I'm saying. I'm saying super fast. I'm saying super loud or whatever it may be. And you're going to go, hey, go ahead and code for that or cancel that pursuit, because you're like, you ain't in fucking control of your shit right now. And we need you to be in control.
Yeah.
So, but those are great circumstances for you as an officer to train yourself and be like, okay, deep breath. And those are minute compared to officer involved shooting, a fight, whatever it may be, because a fight is that close to an OIS.
Yeah, it very well could be. So yeah, that's why I say, like, I'm big on the opportunity that you get to train in our job, which is not a lot.
Should be more.
It should be. Oh fuck! It should be way more. We could spend an episode talking about that. We are both in agreement that in law enforcement, we do not get enough training. And that's probably why we are where we are. But the times that you do get training, add a little bit of stress into it. And like I said, it doesn't have to be a large amount of stress. A shot clock at the range. That's a pretty easy thing to do. Or run. Yeah. So when I'm on the line and we're getting ready to shoot, I always say, let's do a 40-yard dash there and back. So sprint 40 yards behind you. Turn around, sprint 40 yards back, get to the 7-10 yard line. Your heart rate's now going, and don't sit there and give your time to cool off and get boom. It's like now, like get back to the line, get your gun out, and shoot the target. And I think I did this exercise with somebody actually recently, and I'm like, just do this, okay? Because he was shooting these groupings real tight. But he's taking his time. I said, okay, do this. And he's thinking like, oh, my shots are going to be all over the place. So I'm like, well, just try it. Okay. He does it. I said, get your gun out, get rounds off as fast as you can. Don't even look for your front sights.
Yeah.
Fuck the front sights. He does it. He was shocked how accurate he was. You know why? Because your brain takes over at that point and it aims for you. Your brain is always going to hone in on the threat. And let's just take a hypothetical scenario where a guy's shooting at you and you pull your gun out and you start firing back at him. If anyone honestly thinks that you're going to get your gun out, find your front sights, guys, I'm here to tell you, you're wrong. You're not. But why you have accurate shots is because your brain by default will tunnel vision in on the threat, which is what? The gun, right?
Yeah.
And your brain aims for you. Just let it happen. So in training, I say try to replicate that. Don't get your gun out. Don't find your front sights. Sure, there's a time and a place for that, but when you're talking about speed and firing under stress, get your gun out, fire as fast as you can down range. I think you'd be surprised how accurate you actually are. And all you're doing is setting yourself up to be that much more successful should you be in a deadly encounter. You asked me if I've ever sent my dog on a canine suicide mission. That happened one time in my career, and it was patrol obviously responded to this call. Initially, it was a guy had a firearm, put the gun in his wife's mouth, threatened to shoot her with it. domestic violence thing. They get there. She ends up running out of the house. He chases her out of the house. He's got a gun. Our guys are there. He sees the cops, immediately retreats back into the house, barricades himself. So what? Now we have a SWAT call out. We get there, and this turned into it was like a 15-hour SWAT call out. It was in the middle of summer. It was a freaking hot day. And we were approaching the 15th hour. And for us, we can't work past 15 hours. So we would have to then relinquish it over to another SWAT team. Well, we had already hot gassed it, like you name it. We did it. This guy was not coming out. And the SWAT team, which ended up being your department, was there to take over if that's what we were going to do. But they were basically like, hey, you've done everything we would do. So we're going to have to go in and get him if you guys don't go in and get him. Like, right. That's what we've come down to at this point. Mm-hmm. Looking back, I don't know if I probably agree with that maybe, but that was the decision that was made. There was a lot of discussion about it. Ultimately, our team leader comes up to us and he hand selects like 6 of us for an entry team. It was a pretty small house. Obviously, I get selected because I'm the dog. I'm the canine guy on the SWAT team, so I'm the skids dog. And he's like, hey, the plan's going to be we'll deploy the dog in first, and we'll go in after that. And in my head, I'm thinking, man, he's armed. We know that for a fact. In my head, I'm thinking, this is definitely probably a suicide mission for the dog, because I'm assuming he's probably going to shoot the dog. Yeah. And that goes against everything we train. Mm-hmm. But in the moment, I'm like, we've done everything we can to try to flush him out. He's not coming out. If we're going in, I guess I'd rather sacrifice my dog than one of us. And my thought process was, I'll send the dog in, and should he get, I'm going to do a very slow, deliberate search with the dog, because that's how we do SWAT searches with the dog. It's not a free for all. Right. If I send the dog in, I can dictate what room the dog goes in. If I send him into a particular room and he gets shot, we know where the bad guy's at, right? Yeah. And so that was kind of my thought process behind it. Was they made the decision that they're going in. So pause before boots is the saying in the canine world. And so I'm like, fuck, okay. So we have bulletproof vests for our dogs, which you rarely ever use. Yeah.
I've only seen it
never
twice,
use them.
I think.
Yeah. So this was like the one time I used it on my dog, and I put it on him, and I'm like, I literally gave him a kiss on his head, and I'm like, all right, little buddy, like, yeah, this might be it. What else am I going to do? So, this worked out in our favor. I deployed the dog in. We had, the FBI was there. They had already deployed one of their robots in the house, and it had died. And this robot was like 6 feet tall. It was huge, humongous robot stuck in the hallway of this house. The battery had died on it, and the house is full of gas. So we're obviously in gas mask. And for you that are wondering, that does not affect the dog. It doesn't affect their gas, and OC and stuff does not affect the dog's smell. So, because that got asked, and I'm like, no, it doesn't affect them. So dog goes in, this big ass robot is in the middle of this fucking hallway. And I send the dog down this hall. He bypasses a room that I tried sending him into, which was rare that he would do that. Mm-hmm. And he pushes right to this other room, but the door was open down this hallway. He literally jumps over this 6-foot robot, goes into this room, and he's running around the room barking. And then he comes out of the room, jumps back over the robot, and comes back to me. And I looked at my team leader, and I'm like, he's in that room. Mm-hmm. 100%. He's in that room. Yeah. And he's like, why do you think that? I'm like, because
it's my fucking dog.
Well, yeah, because I can read the dog, but I'm like, because he's not doing what I'm asking him to do, to go in this other room. Mm-hmm. And he's bypassing that because he's already got the suspect's odor. He knows exactly where he's at. I'm like, he's in that fucking room. So we end up pushing up to the room. We have to like pick this robot up and get it out of the way so that we could get through there. And I'm like, I'm going to cast the dog down this hallway. I'm going to see what he does. So I sent him down the hallway, immediately goes into that room again, barking. I call him back to me, and I'm like, yep, he's in there.
Yeah.
For sure. No shots are fired. The guy ends up being barricaded in that room, in a bathroom, in the shower with towels, like wet towels wrapped around his face, like to avoid the gas. And the dog goes in the bathroom and starts barking out the shower. All of a sudden, this dude who's butt naked comes busting out of the freaking shower, and he's unarmed. He didn't have the gun on him, which ended up being in the kitchen, but he comes busting out of the shower. And my dog didn't even get a bite on this. I was so pissed. A couple other SWAT guys tackle him, and it was so tight of a room that like I had to grab my dog, and he ended up jumping up and biting me in the elbow and shredded my SWAT shirt. And I was pissed. But that was the only time that I truly thought, I'm like, I did not think my dog was probably going to make that out alive. I had to make that decision because I was willing to sacrifice him over one of us, and it just was what it was. It ended up in our favor. It was a shitty thing to have to do.
Yeah.
But
that brought up a completely different thing, but, and please, cause you're the expert in this, tell me where I'm wrong and right or whatever, or explain more. But, if you work in patrol or wherever, if you work around a canine, understand what a canine's doing, in multiple ways. In my opinion, that leader should have been like, yeah, canine handler says the dog's telling him he's in there. Then,
oh, he knew. Like
yeah.
The team leader had a good idea. He's like he's not a dog handler, but he was like, yeah, he's wanting to go only in that room.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, he's in there. He's like, are you sure?
Yeah, and beyond that, you talked about your SWAT guys ended up fighting apprehending him. Work around dogs, understand dogs, because please correct me if I'm wrong on this. Your dog doesn't give a shit if it's a cop or a criminal. No. If you send him and for some reason you're the cop and you're like, I'm faster than this dog all of a sudden, and I get in front of him.
Yeah, you're getting bit.
You're getting your ass bit.
Yeah.
And you're going to run up and you're going to tell whoever dog get out or whatever, and he's probably going to still bite, and you're going to have to hard out, and it's going to fucking hurt like hell.
Yeah, the dog doesn't differentiate between a cop and a bad guy.
I understand that, hey, if the dog's sent, dog's gone.
Yep.
I will be behind that, and when and that's one of the things that why canine leaders make great leaders, I think, is you are looked at as a leader in that situation. Whether it be a felony vehicle stop and the guy comes out and starts running, you're going to look to that canine handler and you'll be like, can I go? And they're going to be like, and they start moving, you'll be like, okay, I'll start moving with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's just a whole different topic that I wanted to bring up.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, good points. That was the only time I thought I was the only true time I really sent my dog into a true suicide mission. But it was because, I didn't want one of us to get killed. So it worked out. But anyways, let's take a break and then we'll come back and we're going to talk about Billy's career. He wants to give some advice on how to get into what he's doing, detective stuff, undercover stuff. He has a lot to share about that and give some advice on guys that are interested in that, going that direction in their career. What can they do to set themselves up to be successful, to do what you're doing, which is a really cool job that not a lot of people get to do. So, all right, guys, welcome back. We're back from our break. So we left off. We talked a lot about kind of canine stuff and I don't know, a bunch of random topics, some questions that people had for us. So, which was really good questions. Hope we answered them. I wanted to talk about what you do, and if there's anybody out there, I know there's a lot of cops out there that have a very big interest in wanting to be a narcotic officer or a gang officer. You've been fortunate. You've been a gang detective. You've been a narcotic detective. Now you're on a fugitive task force. Not a task force, but a fugitive unit within your own department. Which is really hard to get into at your department. That's like the cream of the crop right there. What you guys do.
It's selective, I would say.
Yeah, very. I mean,
and you mentioned 3 of the 5 jobs I've done, which is patrol deputy and corrections are the other ones that I've done.
Yeah. So
it's the best job I've ever had.
Let's talk about what advice could you give officers that are maybe wanting to be a gang detective or a narcotic officer? Like what can they do to move in that direction to get selected for those assignments?
So
let's start with gangs.
So, and I'm glad you said let's start with gangs, because a lot of people be like, oh, I want to be a gangs or narcotics detective. And they'll say that. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you want to do? And they'll be like, I want to be gangs or narcotics. I'm like, do you want to be gangs or do you want to be narcotics? And while there is an overlap, because a lot of gangbangers are selling drugs, they're far different.
Oh yeah.
They're extremely different jobs, and they are extremely different people that excel at them. And I don't think I actually excelled at either of them, but
that's because you downplay everything you do.
Oh, well, I guarantee you I can find people that are far better at what.
Sure, we all can.
But okay, whatever.
Billy has a very hard time giving yourself credit for what you do. Well, I admire that about you. You don't have an ego, which is awesome. And
I think humble yourself is fucking. I'll be my first point then. But gangs. I think for my department, our gang detectives they're somewhat of a street team and somewhat of a detective. And I know that it's been 4 years since I was on 3 years, I think maybe since I've been a gang detective. So things change, and it's like anything in law enforcement. Things change with department needs, with the community needs, or whatever. When I was on gangs, you were like half of a street team, half of a detective, I always say. And what I would do then is you would sit there and you would do your investigations like, hey, what's this guy doing? What's this guy doing? What's this guy doing? Gang members that you know are on your radar, and you do your social media kind of things and see if you can write warrants into their house, warrants into whatever it may be, to try and get them with guns were the big things.
Yeah.
When you're in the gang unit, and drugs are guns and drugs are like
goes hand in hand.
They go hand in hand.
Yeah.
They're if you're a dope dealer, you probably have guns. And I'll explain that a little bit more when I get to narcotics, but the other half would be just your hunter. Mm-hmm. And hunting is probably one of the most fun things when you do not have calls for service, which is great. When you can just get out there and you can say, today I'm doing, our shifts are 10 hours. I'm going to do 10 hours of straight hunting people, and I'm going to go, and you have the freedom of going to any district or any area within your agency, and you're going to go, I'm going to go after bad people. Mm-hmm. And you sit there and you probably do 30 vehicle stops, and one of them's good, right? Mm-hmm. But one of them's good and it's fun. You know,
when it's good,
pursuit, it's good. It's guns, drugs, whatever it may be, and it's a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. So having that eye, and I've always said that Kyle has that. Kyle's a fucking shitbag magnet. I never worked with him, but from what I've heard about, and the stuff that you've done, you're like, oh shit, being that kind of person is huge too. And I think that the canine and gang hunting world, they correlate a lot, where you can look at something and be like, that's not right. And you can find the PC, which goes back to knowing laws, knowing policies and everything, and be like, okay, their taillight's out. I'm going to stop them for a taillight violation. I don't think I've ever written a ticket for that, but I'm still going to stop them for it.
Yeah.
And see where it goes. So being a proactive police officer, which is harder in some departments, harder at different shifts, is a huge thing to get into the gang detail. I would also say, and this is just law enforcement as a whole, we brought it up probably 5 times already, not to beat a dead horse, but the gift of gab, being able to talk to people. Yeah. It's huge. Those would be the big things when it comes to gangs.
I'm just thinking of like a cop trying to talk to a gangster, like Mr. Robot, like Mr. Robot, new cop trying to talk to a gangster, like they would clown you.
Oh yeah, and they will literally clown you,
laugh at you. Yeah.
And you know, you got to be able to be like, I'm going to ask you about something, and you're going to be like, nah, I'm not going to tell you that. And you'd be like, oh, okay. Like, hey, I respect that. I probably wouldn't say it too, right?
Yeah. Let them know, like, I get it.
Yeah, snitches get stitches. We've all heard that, right?
Yeah, except in their world, snitches get fucking bullets.
And they do.
Yeah.
But you have to be in touch with what's happening out in the streets, and it's ever changing. And when it comes to the gang world, social media is huge.
Oh yeah.
Huge. And where we were in the area that we work, rap music is becoming what is a big thing too. And it is, I like some rap, don't get me wrong. It is the shittiest fucking rap I've ever listened to. But when I was a gang detective, I would listen to this rap music and I'd be like,
I know
people are listening to this shit, but you're reading between the lines. They're talking about fuck some moniker or whatever, and moniker nickname. I'm sorry, you know, and then you're like, oh, okay, let me type that into a system that, you know, law enforcement has to look up monikers and things like that, and just knowing, or there's the cops that just know, like, oh, I know Shorty or whatever it is. Which there's probably 1,000 Shorties, but whatever it may be.
We use that as an example. We don't want to give our local rap stars any shout outs on the show.
Oh man, if you want to pay though.
Yeah, forget that.
So, you know, just being in touch and knowing where, and being fluid is a huge thing. I would say those are being the hunter is what gets you into gangs though. Yeah,
I never did it, but I work with guys that are super in touch with the gang stuff, and man, you're right. Social media to me seems like these guys are dumb, like dumb. I mean, we just had we've got like rap studios, you know, all over, and
they're popping up everywhere.
Yeah, we've got some in our city, and they had they were filming a rap concert, or not a concert, but like a rap video, music video, just this past weekend. And you know whatever, right? Like I've told the guys, I'm like, hey, there's 100 of them and a few of us. Like, don't fuck with them unless we need to, because it's not smart. But you know, the guys that are savvy in the gang world are checking their social media and shit. Like they know who's out there, and these guys are like posting pictures of themselves, like holding up AK-47s and guns and shit. I'm like, so how hard is it? Like as a gang detective, right? You look at that and you're like, oh, cool. Thank you. Yeah. Write a search warrant into their home or whatever. You identify who they are. Write a search warrant into their social media, their phone. That's how you guys are really keeping tabs on these guys, right? Like social media is huge.
Yeah. And I won't say that necessarily, sometimes it is, but I won't say that necessarily me posting with an illegal gun is enough for someone to get a warrant. It may or may not be, whatever it may be, the facts behind it. But that definitely should say, oh, that light bulb should turn on, and I've identified who that person is. Yeah. And now I can go 1,000 different routes that maybe some other investigation techniques that, you know, I'm not going to give out all of our trade secrets.
Yeah. But I mean, like it's quite obvious, right? Like, oh, hey, old dude over here is blasting a picture on social media holding an AK-47.
And sometimes they're fake.
Yeah, sure. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not, but let's go pay him. Let's go, maybe pay him a visit or give him some attention.
Yeah.
So social media, yeah, like you said, it seems to be a pretty big deal in the gang world.
Yeah.
They love flaunting it.
Oh yeah. But it is a status thing too, is they kind of have to do it. And just like Kyle and I want to, you know, we post shit on our Instagrams about this show. They post shit to show that their credit for who they are as a gang member, and guns are huge, money's huge. Sometimes it's cars or whatever it may be. And that just gives them status. So they, in a way, they have to do it. And you could tell them like, hey, we're going to look at your Instagram. And they'd be like, well, I ain't shit if I don't do it. So that's just, it is what it is. It's that street mentality. and they have a different goal in life than we do.
Yeah.
Or that
crazy.
Most do.
And we're dealing with gangsters that are 12, 13, 14 years old, like really, really young, going out there doing some bad shit, like shootings, and they're like 12 years old. I'm like, gosh, damn it, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge. I mean, the gang world is definitely a young world. And
yeah, it seems like it's gotten younger and younger, and I think social media is a catalyst for a lot of that. Like these little gangsters, the badder you are on social media, like the more clout you get.
Plus, it's I was young and dumb. I'm sure you were young and dumb.
Yeah, I didn't think about fucking shooting somebody.
But you didn't think about shooting somebody, but you didn't grow up there.
No, I didn't. Not at all.
And your idols were not
thinking about like I'd shit myself if I grew up in that environment.
But I'm saying your idols at that point, your peer idols were not gang members. Yeah,
they were Garth Brooks.
Garth Brooks, which you failed at becoming him.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying is and understanding that too is understanding that these are still a gang member is not they're not defined as a gang member in my opinion. They're a human being. They've made some mistakes. They've grown up a hell of a lot different than
we
most
did.
cops.
Yeah.
I would say, if not all cops. Mm-hmm. And granted, they made some bad decisions at a young age, probably. Yeah. I made some bad decisions, but not at that extreme level. So you have to have the human value behind it and understand it. So to be in your words, to get on the gang team if your department has one. I mean, a lot of cities don't even have a gang problem. But if you are and you're listening to this, be a proactive guy or gal. Go out there, be in tune with these gangster social media. Study what gangbangers are living, are associated with the area that you work in, because you could be studying up on gangs that have nothing to do with where you even work. You got to be in tune with who's who in the zoo. 18th Street down in LA, huge gang.
Doesn't make a difference up here.
MS-13 is something that I think that everybody knows about. MS-13.
Yeah.
I've ran into one MS-13 guy.
Yeah. So
it's just don't understand what your community has.
Yes.
And educate yourself in it. There are, if your community doesn't have a gang class, then become that gang class.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, if you have a gang team, there's a gang guy who knows something about those gangs. Yeah.
Study up on who's who in the zoo in the communities that you work in. Don't focus on shit that doesn't matter, like gangs that aren't even prevalent in your area. Like, you don't need to know all the gangs, just know what's affecting your communities.
And it brings up, it reminded me of another thing, is any specialized team that you're trying to get into, you're going to want to work whatever it is as a patrol officer or whatever it may be. Understand your limits.
Yeah.
Because I have ran into people who have shot themselves in the foot, and they probably would have been the best gang officer, the best narcotics officer, the best canine guy or whatever, but they stepped outside of their bounds and they got themselves in a situation where they ruined someone's case. They, got into a situation where you're in a freaking marked unit with a uniform on. Yeah. Don't try and do surveillance. Don't try and do stuff like that. I'd say, I'm far away. Like, these guys are smarter than you think.
Wait, and they do counter surveillance too. So
I will tell you about counter. I could talk a whole episode about counter surveillance.
Yeah, maybe we'll get into that to the dope section. But all right, so that's good advice. Now transitioning over, you went from gangs to a narcotic officer. I know that's a large topic, but I mean, I think we probably all know, like, if you want to be a dope guy, a dope cop, and I mean, gosh, depending on what state you're even living in, like, is it even worth? Like, is it worth it? I don't know. That's on you, I guess, to figure out. But to be a dope cop, like, shit, know your local drug houses, like. Be proactive.
I think that where I work, our dope officers are I think I already mentioned 5 or 6. I can't remember exactly what I said. It's less than 10, more than 5, right? Depending on the time of day, and it's a task force kind of deal. So you have other agencies working on it, but
Major
it was major narcotics.
Yeah, this isn't your local dope team. This is like we're talking about major.
So your street level stuff we get told about and be like, oh, okay, and we'll get on that. And just like anything, if whatever your interest is or whatever your duty to thing is, you're going to prioritize the more extreme. And I'd say we were kind of like pound to 2 pound level is where we were talking about. And for those of you outside of California, that's when I say dope or narcs, it's not marijuana.
No, we're talking like white dope or heroin or
white heroin, whatever it may be.
Anything other than marijuana.
Anything other than marijuana. Yeah. But to do that, where was I going with this? But whatever. So to get into narcotics is different. It's different. You're not going to be proactive. You're not going to be doing vehicle stops. There's no hunting. There's nothing like that. It is a lot of sitting and doing nothing, a lot of research, a lot of long-term cases where you're going. I've done year-long cases. I've helped out on multi-year cases. I've helped out on cases that a detective worked, I think it was 6 years ago, worked a case and then couldn't get him because some of these guys are really, really good.
Yeah.
They know what we're doing more than we know what we're doing sometimes. And that could go, I can get into counter surveillance and things, techniques, which I will a little bit about what they do. But knowing how to talk to people is probably your number one thing because
Weird.
I'm bringing it up again. When it comes to narcotics, the biggest thing that we can get is confidential informants or informants, whatever you want to call it, snitches, whatever it may be.
In our world, it's confidential informants, CIs.
CIs, Cindy's, is sometimes they're called that, whatever you want to call them. And these people have to have a trust in you, and you have to have a trust in them. It really is. I have worked with informants that almost you think of them as kind of a friend, and they're out there doing probably just about as much dirt as the person they're giving up at times.
Yeah.
But you have to give up some of the small stuff to get the big stuff is what would be a big thing. But talking to those people, creating relationships, and you can do that in patrol. And you can, and I mentioned that knowing your bounds too in patrol.
Stay in your lane.
You can develop an informant, but it's almost impossible in most agencies to work an informant as a patrol guy.
As a patrol cop, yeah, I agree.
But if you want to go to narcotics and you're calling up a narc detective once a year, twice a year, whatever it may be, and be like, hey, I got this guy and he's giving up this, and you're throwing it all over to them, they're going to be like, hey, who's this showbird guy who keeps giving me this stuff? And you're going to be like, hopefully that detective is telling the supervisors and other people on their team. Sometimes the narcotics world gets very tight-lipped because there's only so much out there, and people are like, oh, I'm going to work your guy, you're going to work my guy, and people don't like the cross-contamination, we'll say.
So it sounds like if you're a patrol cop and you want to be a dope guy, develop those relationships with those folks dabbling in the narcotic world, but instead of trying to work them yourself, because generally speaking, you probably can't do that anyways, hand that off to a detective who's already in the narcotic world. And that is going to boost your name of, in the narcotic world. These detectives are going to be like, hey, Billy here's got us a couple CIs. Like he's solid.
Yeah.
Let's, when it comes time to test to be on the team, I probably pick a guy like that, right? So you're not trying to, and I've seen it where like patrol guys try to hoard these people.
No.
And it's like,
you can't,
first of all, like what violates our policy. I don't know about yours, but we're not allowed to work CIs and at a patrol level. Like, it has to go through the narcotic officers. So the more of them you can develop, where if you can make a good arrest, and then sometimes these guys want to flip and they're like, hey, is there somebody I can talk to kind of work this out? Yeah, I can get you in touch with somebody. Kind of, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, no, 100%. And you brought up a good thing about not having the ability and policies and everything. There in our department, we call them, we have files on people. Mm-hmm. And if you have an informant, you have to have a file on them.
Same thing.
That file is, and I'll, to those of you that want to snitch, this is how important that file is that file is either locked in a detective's desk where they only have the key, or it is placed in an area where there's two people that have the key to it, and nobody can just go in there, and there's cameras on it and everything. It's not something that we take lightly at all.
Yeah. Well, because people's lives are at stake when they do that.
Well, and
literally,
and honestly, if I burned an informant when I worked narcotics, if I burned an informant, it is my responsibility, therefore my department's responsibility, to ensure the safety of that person. And if it is the huge thing where I have to get them out of the state or out of the area, that's on my department's dime. That's on my dime. That's on, not mine, but
not your dime, but it's on you.
It's on me. It's on my department's dime. So yeah. I'm not going to burn an informant. I never have. I never will. And when it comes down to it, especially in the narcotics world, and they're like, we need to know who your informant is. Like, no, you don't.
No, you don't. Yeah.
And if they push it, and I'd be like, drop the charges. Mm-hmm. I don't care.
Yeah. It's that serious.
It is that serious. But, and that is an expertise that you learn in narcotics. And if you, or wherever you are handling informants, you're not going to have that in patrol where you're going to be like, oh yeah, it's Jimmy Bob. And you're like, fucking, now you guys are fucked. Because
don't do that.
Yeah, because and I'm not saying I'm saying maybe to the district attorney's offices. Sometimes the person sometimes it's the judge that's saying, hey, we need your informant. And you're like,
and that's when you go in the back office.
Yeah, and I've been there.
Private conversations.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think the dope side of things is probably not a little, a lot more slow speed. And I think it's important for you to tell people that if you get into a unit, a narcotic unit or whatever, there's a lot of times where you're just sitting in a vehicle for hours.
I've done days in a vehicle
doing nothing.
And I've done a whole day, and probably multiple, but taking breaks after a day, but on point. And when I say on point, most people understand is that's the guy who is in front of the house and you're in the backseat of your car in the middle of the summer. Sometimes that car's off and it's hot. And you're sitting out there, and unfortunately you have to pee. You're peeing in bottles. It's not glamorous. And you're sitting there, you're taking notes being like, this car showed up. This person, a person went in, they were out. Sometimes it's short stay traffic is what you're going after, which is short stay traffic would be drug related traffic is a lot of the time is what we would call it.
Yeah.
It's not as glamorous as you think. And you'll put hours, days, months, in some cases years into a case where you're just doing surveillance or whatever it may be. And sometimes for nothing. Yeah. Because in the end, you're saying the only way you know if something's in there is when you're in there, right? And I can sit there and be like, someone could tell me the guy had 10 pounds. He had 10 pounds, but I still have to write that paper. I have to do my surveillance. I have to do that. Sometimes that takes a day, 2 days, 3 days, whatever it may be. In 3 days, these guys can go through 100 pounds I've seen. And you hit a house and you're like, I got a pound. And to a patrol aspect, you're like, pound's great.
Oh, right? Well, that's a lot of dope, yeah.
Everyone's high-fiving on a pound on a vehicle stop or something like that.
Oh, for sure.
In narcotics, you're like, fuck. That guy, that's a 10-pound dealer right there. And I got him with a pound. Or I got him with nothing.
Yeah, sometimes I've been involved in search warrants where nothing.
And you're sitting there and you're like, you've been involved in the search warrant and you're like, oh, okay. And you spent a day, 2 hours doing that, and you're like, oh, all right, we got nothing. That sucks. Imagine when you put 6 months into that, and you're like, and now this guy knows you're onto him, so it's not like I'll just start it back up tomorrow.
No, it's done. It's a done deal. Yeah.
So
so I think it's important for guys that or gals that want to be in the narcotics world. There's a lot of probably more downtime than there's action time. I mean, it's not all about kicking doors in and
not probably 100%.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, like
90-10,
not to go off on a tangent, but the days on search warrants of booting doors in and raiding houses and stuff, that's kind of going out the window, where now a lot of time it's just, we'll pick them off when they leave and roll back into a search warrant. Like, it's more safe.
Oh yeah. I've done both.
Yeah. I mean, I've never been a detective, so I've never like authored those types of warrants. I've always just been the guy involved in it, in the execution of the search warrant, but, or an arrest warrant. But our job is changing so drastically that even, the days of just blasting doors open after doing a knock and notice and going and raiding people's homes, like, it's not really happening anymore, because there's like safer ways to do it.
Yeah.
You may be a detective, a narcotics detective, like sitting in, doing surveillance on a target and waiting for him to leave the house. Mm-hmm. It may be hours, and then he finally leaves, and you pull him over, pick him off, and then go back and do the search warrant.
Yeah, that's a common practice now, and that's a common practice on
a lot of stuff,
on not just narcotics. That's the days of SWAT teams, TAC teams.
It's over.
Any teams doing entries is,
I'd say it's over.
It's pretty much over. Absent a hostage, I don't know. I don't know when we do entries. Honestly,
not a lot.
And that brings up a different point. In narcotics, it's different. It's really hard to do a surround and call out in narcotics, because
for obvious reasons.
We've done them, and I've gone in there and found the baggies sitting next to the toilet.
Yeah,
and you're like, fuck me.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work in narcotics.
Yeah.
So sometimes that window, or that is pushed, and it's pushed in a bad way sometimes, pushed in a good way sometimes. But you're sitting there and you're like, you want to get bad guys. I want to get bad guys. Your job right now is to supervise your people to get bad guys on the street and calls for service. When I was in narcotics, my job was to get major drug dealers. So I put work in. I wanted to get those guys. And sometimes it didn't work out. And am I pissed? Was I mad? Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
What is I MFing motherfucking whoever about why the fuck we did it this way, why we did it that way? Yeah. In the whole grand scheme of thing, is 500 pounds of heroin worth
one life?
One life is worth a Canine's life, even?
Nah.
As we've already said, or worth less.
Yeah,
but
I don't think
they're
so.
not. They're not. So you sit there and you're like, fuck that. But we can all sit there and we can sit there and go, oh, the guy didn't have a gun, so it would have worked out perfect.
Yeah.
Well,
you didn't know that at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't know that. So that's good. I mean, that's good advice. I think a lot of people think some of these detective jobs are like really high speed, and
most aren't.
They're not.
Most detective jobs are not high speed.
Not at all.
I'd say 99 or 90% of detective jobs are not high speed. They're not at all. And narcotics has their high speed aspect. Gangs has their high speed aspect. And every department has a different way of going about their detectives. And some departments do gangs different. Some departments do narcotics different.
Yeah.
Some have street teams, which are a great asset. These are all things that are great, but you either have it or you don't.
Right. Yep. Yeah. So there you have it, coming from a guy who's done it. I mean, if it's what you thought it was, I mean,
I peed in more bottles than any man should.
If you're a detective, and you get patrol guys that are giving you that stuff, like invite them in on some of it.
Yeah. Don't be secretive about what you do. Honestly, there's some cops out there. There's some, especially in narcotics, there's some cops who are like very secretive about what they do. And, you know, there's trade secrets and confidential informants bring up a whole nother thing. But teach the younger people, not even younger, teach the patrol people who want to do it without the experience, because the more experience you have coming into it, or the more experience you decide it ain't for you, it still makes you a better cop.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. Anything else on that?
No, not on narcotics. Yeah, no.
All right.
I mean, yeah, there's a ton. But
we could go forever.
Yeah, we could go like on mobile surveillance and counter surveillance and all kinds of different things. But
yeah,
I don't know. And if that's something you guys want to hear about, please shoot me or Kyle.
Well, don't message me. Message Billy. He knows about it. I'll refer you to him. I'll be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know. So, well, should we wrap it up? I mean,
did you want to get into anything about undercover stuff or?
Yeah. I mean, what do you have about, like, if you want to touch on some undercover stuff? I mean,
yeah,
Reader's Digest.
I'll do the quick and gritty and dirty. I love undercover stuff. I think it's. I
think I'd be too scared to do it, to be honest.
But it comes back to being a human, and cops, we act away, right?
Yeah,
we stand away. We have mannerisms. We talk in different ways and stuff like that. And when you get in, we dress away. And when you get into the semi-undercover and undercover things, you gotta change, and it's a whole different world that you get into. And the white guy with a beard gives away narcotics officer.
Yeah,
I was the white guy with a beard, and a bald head too. So, there's different things that you can do. No, you don't. I mean, don't tell the truth, but don't lie is what I say.
Yeah.
If you have a background in something, remember that background. So I did 10 years of construction. So when people would challenge me on things, I'd be like, I work construction.
Yeah.
And there's so many ways that can go, and they can ask you all these questions and everything. And if you don't know the answer, then don't say you do it. If you did nothing in your life, just be like, I play video games. I don't know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I just want to buy some weed or some meth and tweak out and play video games.
Yeah.
If you know about it, then talk about it. But
yeah, sure.
These guys are good. They know what to ask, and they know that stuff. So
you know what I find funny is I've been on a lot of buy busts with our dope team as a dog handler, and I'll be listening on the
wire.
The wire, yeah, on the phone, and waiting for the bus sign. But I'm like listening to them conversate with these guys who they're dealing dope or buying dope with or dealing whatever. Yeah. And I swear to God, dude, all the time they're like, the dealer's like, "You're not a cop, are you?"
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Like, are you fucking kidding? I'm like, what do you expect him to say? Oh, you got me.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think there's a certain amount
of
unintelligent criminals out there that think that cops have to tell you that they're cops if you ask them.
They must be, because they were always like,
"Oh, actually,
hey, you're not a cop, are you?"
To this. But no, I mean,
fuck?
I got asked if I was a cop. I got asked, I didn't do a lot of buy stuff, but the little that I did do was probably one of the most fun things that I did.
Were you like really nervous?
First couple times I was, but then you get used to it, and I did street buys, and it was actually when I was on the gang unit, but I did it with somebody who had done it before, and I was the passenger in the car, and seeing them do it was like, fucking easy, right? It's not, but it is.
No, I would.
It's not, but it is. It really is. If you can talk, you can talk. If you can't, you can't. You should know who to pick for that before. We do want to remind people again, if you guys are liking this or you guys are finding value in this, subscribe to the channel, like our content. Please leave us a review. Like I said before, it helps us out. If you're interested in, hosting a class that I offer, you can always go to kyleshoberg.com. I'm the owner of Schoberg Tactical Consulting.
The class I offer right now is surviving deadly encounters and the realities that follow. We talk a lot about officer wellness, stuff like that. So, shoot, yeah, go do all the things that you know you're supposed to do.
Yeah, go do work.
Go do work.
Yeah,
yeah, help us out. We want to keep the ball rolling. We do have some really awesome guests lined up.
Yeah, I'm nervous and excited. They're so like awesome.
Yeah, we have some really cool guests lined up to interview. We did want to set aside this time to do this, so hopefully you guys found value in it. If you have questions, again, hit us up, at Billy Shots Fired Podcast. Make sure you add him, ask him questions.
Now, ask me questions. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. What you don't like is great too.
Yeah,
like, I honestly,
we need to know.
We need to know. Tell us how stupid I look. Whatever. I don't care.
He got the beard back.
Yeah, for now.
Got a lot of people that were like questioning about the beard. I'm like,
why?
It's coming back. I'm like, he had to take some photographs. It's all good.
Because I lost like 10 years. I looked like I was.
You did look. You looked so young.
And a cop. I looked like a cop, huh?
Gosh. Yeah. So.
I should have worn my American flag. Thin blue line or something.
Good grief. Anyways. All right. Add us on Instagram. Check us out. Follow us on your favorite podcast app, YouTube. We're all there. We're on all the platforms. We will see you guys next time. And peace out. Later. Thank you.